Good afternoon, class. Today is Monday, December 4th, and today we're going to talk about invasive species. So to start off, I want you guys to write the date, of course, in your notebooks, and a bell ringer. I want you guys to write what you know about the phrase invasive species, whether it's a guess, or maybe you just know what one word means, maybe you know what invasive means, or maybe you just know what species means. Whatever, just a small educated guess. Okay, at this time students would do that, but we're gonna keep moving. Okay, so before we get into our notes, I want you guys to watch this quick video. It's gonna be a small recap of everything we're just gonna talk about today. Give me 1 second. Found it. Really quick.
Invasive species. You've probably heard the term, but what exactly does it mean? And how is it different than terms like non-native species or pests? Great question. Come along with us as we explore these different terms. First, a little sneak peek into invasive species. Invasive species include plants and animals, both in water and on land. They are found in many places, including national parks. They threaten the Park Service mission to preserve unimpaired America's natural and cultural resources. So what makes a plant or animal invasive? Does it have to do with a certain amount of damage, or is it just a species that left its own habitat? Let's talk about some other definitions, like native and non-native, before we dive into the big question. Native species. These are all organisms that have occurred, now occur, or may occur without human intervention. One example is the white-footed mouse. It's native throughout the eastern United States. When found in nature, the mouse is an integral part of the ecosystem. Non-native species. These are species that do not occur naturally in an area, but are introduced as a result of a deliberate or accidental human activity. Most importantly, they exist where they have not naturally occurred and may even be considered beneficial under certain circumstances. One example you may recognize is the bell pepper. It's not native to the United States, but it currently presents no threat to native plants. Now it's finally time to explore invasive species. Invasive species are non-native species that cause harm to the environment, cultural resources, infrastructure, economy, human safety and health, as well as plant and animal health. One example is kudzu. Kudzu was introduced to the United States in 1876 at an exposition in Philadelphia. It can grow up to a foot a day, allowing it to easily outcompete and kill other plants. It even grows over power lines and poles, causing damage that results in the loss of power to communities. Now you may be thinking, where do pests fit into all of this? Great question. Let's bring back our old friend, the white-footed mouse. As we said earlier, the white-footed mouse is a native species throughout the eastern United States when found in nature. But when found in and around structures, the mouse poses significant threats to resources and human health, and it's considered to be a pest. A pest is any organism that interferes with management objectives or threatens human health or safety. A pest can be native or non-native. All invasive species are pests, but not all pests are invasive species. Confused? For instance, a feral swine is non-native because it did not originate in the US, a pest because it causes damage to a variety of resources, and it's invasive both because it's non-native and causes harm. On the other hand, the white-footed mouse is native because it comes from the US and may be a pest if it causes damage or health issues, but it's not invasive because it is native. Phew! We threw you a lot of information in a short amount of time. Find out how you can help prevent the spread of invasive species by visiting go.nps.gov/preventinvasives.
Okay, moving on. So let's get started. Okay. So you guys can set these words aside or write them down if you want to remember them. We're going to talk about them. But we have species, invasive, dominant, ecological, and native. Okay, starting off with species. Species is a group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. The species is the principal natural taxonomic unit, ranking below a genus and denoted by a Latin binomial. So here we have a picture of plenty of different species. We have an elephant, a rhino, a lion, a tiger, that's a panther, an armadillo down here, a cheetah, sea turtle, looks like a hammerhead shark, and I do not know what that is. It's a shadow. But, okay, moving on. Invasive. So invasive is tending to spread prolifically and undesirably or harmfully. So in this picture, you can tell that that purple flower is invasive over the other plants, the grass down here, and there's little specks of white flowers around there, but it took control and spread. Okay, now we have dominant. So dominant is most important, powerful, or influential. Dominant and invasive can go hand in hand because the more dominant plant is going to be the more invasive plant. Okay. Now we have ecological. So ecological is relating to or concerned with the relation of living organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. Native. So native, a person who was born in a particular place, or a plant or animal that lives or grows naturally in a place and has not been brought from somewhere else. So in this particular lesson, we're not going to talk about people, but we are going to talk about native plants and animals that live and grow naturally in a place. Here we have a koala. Okay, so the biggest part, invasive species. So an invasive species is a non-native or exotic organism that spreads widely and becomes dominant in a community. Here we have 3 examples. We have an American bullfrog. We have garlic mustard weed. And we have an Asian longhorn beetle. The effects of invasive species. So invasive species can substantially alter a community in different ways, like we saw in the video. We saw it take over. We saw that plant take over the house and the electricity. Growth limiting factors are removed or factored. They have major ecological effects. Fish introduced for sport outcompete and exclude native fish. So that is an example of the effects of an invasive species. At times, like competitive fishing, I guess, fish are introduced in new ponds, and they outcompete and exclude the native fish that were originally there. Here's an example of an invasive species. We have invasive mussels. So zebra mussels impact other species either positively or negatively. On the picture, well, here they are, first of all. And in this picture, we have zebra mussel occurrences in North America, which are the red dots, and the blue dots are zebra mussels trailered overland on boat hulls. So yeah, these are the occurrence of zebra mussels in North America. And over here, it says zebra mussels impact other species either positively or negatively. Okay. So, controlling invasive species. So we saw in the video that invasive species can cause damage. So how to solve this problem? We can remove them manually. As we saw here, they're probably not being removed in this picture, but we can see that they are being held manually. Toxic chemicals. So sometimes gardeners or people who plant throw chemicals in their plants to die off the weeds. We have drying them out, depriving them of oxygen, introducing predators and diseases, stressing them. We have heat, sound, electricity, carbon dioxide, and ultraviolet light. So when it comes to invasive species, prevention rather than control is the best policy. So we don't want any new species taking over. So let's just not bring them. Okay, so now that we're done with our notes, what we're gonna do is play a memory game. So in your groups, we're gonna get a bag of cards and wait for further instruction. Um, so the game is gonna be a memory card game. We'll have definitions, pictures, and the actual word, and we're just gonna match them all up together. Okay, and then once we're done with that, it'll probably take a good 5 to 10 minutes. We're gonna do independent practice. So I'm gonna hand out a worksheet and you'll have 10 minutes to complete this worksheet before the end of class. We're gonna stop 5 minutes early so we can do a exit ticket or a closure. Okay. And then the exit ticket, this will be written on a separate paper, is what is the best policy when it comes to invasive species? So once all the students answer that, they'll be free to move on to the next lesson or be able to go. But now that we're here, what is the best policy when it comes to invasive species? That would be prevention rather than control. Okay, thank you.